Hello and welcome back to Gearhead Geeks, where in this video we are going to go on ahead and put an electric starter into our KZ400. And you say, wait a minute, they already have an electric starter in a KZ400. Well, this is a KZ400S, and that is a special model. That special model has no electric starter and no front disc. Well, we can live without the front disc because we like the retro look. That works good. But an electric starter is something that really makes the bike more livable on a daily basis. So I went on ahead and my first plan was to put an electric starter in here. I figured, well, I'll source all the parts, everything will be fine, and it'll be just easy as peasy, just get it done. Well, I started to look for parts and it was becoming a nightmare. There was nothing out there that I could really find. It was just getting to be too much. I thought, well, fine, forget it. Well, one of my viewers by the name of Tom, and this guy is just the nicest guy. He's just, we've been doing an exchange back and forth and whatever, but this guy had heard that I was going to put an electric starter in, and he had bought another engine, from what I understand, that had an electric starter in it. And he went on ahead, took all the parts out and carefully wrapped them up and sent them to me. I could not be more appreciative if I tried. The guy just really came through for me. Not only did he come through, but he came through with great stuff. Not only an electric starter, the chain and the one-way gear that goes along with it, but he also came up with the housing for the electric start button. On this KZ400, this housing doesn't have a hole in it, and it's just a little bit different. He sent all the little parts that go along with it, everything I pretty much needed. Yeah, maybe a button here or something like that I got to deal with. But what I did get, find it here, is this harness he sent. Now this is perfect, because now I have something to wire the electric start to, and everything can be just back to stock. The good part is that the KZ400S shares the same wiring harness, at least as far as I can see, but there is stuff in there. There's a wire going down that I can go on ahead and hook up a starter relay, get this handlebar stuff all taken care of, and make sure everything is ready for electric start. The only thing I really end up having to do, I had bought a battery for this for the S, which is a 5 amp battery. This thing needs a 12 amp battery. So I bought one of those, I've got it, and we can go on ahead and start putting the electric start in here from start to finish. We'll wire it all up, we'll get it all done. Another thing I didn't have is again, the starter relay. And I believe I've got something that'll work. If I don't, I'll order it and we'll get it in. But other than that, we are going to go ahead and get a starter in this thing and make it just like, so you can just go push the button and start this thing. So we'll get on with that and we'll get started. So the first thing we need to do is we got to get this thing disassembled. We've done our seat in another video. We did the seat base in another video. So those are things you should, if you want to see how that was done, go back and look through the channel and you'll find it. It's coming out pretty good. As far as the seat is concerned, it needs a little time to settle, but the wrinkles are actually starting to go away. But anyway, so first thing we're going to do is just pop this seat off, which we had done and made it super easy. It latches with the Kawasaki latch. So we'll get this off to the side. Then we need to take off the tank, which is just kind of stuck down there at the moment. But it comes right off. That's pretty much going to be the ordeal with the tank. I just have to work on the mounting a little bit. And I'll get this out of the way. Okay. So now what we've got is this battery box, and I really haven't put the air filters in very well, but they're serviceable without removing anything other than the seat and whatever side cover I come up with, and I don't even know what I'm going to do for a side cover just yet. So what we need to do here is we'll remove the carburetors because we need to get this off. We need to get into our electric start area, which has got two very, very seized up studs, and I may end up breaking them off. I tried to pull them out before with heat, and they just didn't want to budge, and I was worried about breaking them off. But now that we don't need them, and we have a starter, and we have something we can bolt the cover to, it should be okay. So we'll get the carburetors off, and we will then get the handlebar stuff all off because we need to rewire that whole thing. So I'm going to continue on with that. Over here, this is it. That's it. And like I said, this is all wired up. This has got electric start stuff in it. So I shouldn't have too much issue getting all that to work. This harness just doesn't have the thing for the push button, but there's a little plate that needs to go over here, which I've got. Everything is looking really, really good here. This is going to be really quite easy. These are on there. Okay. Carburetor's off. We'll move these off to the side. So now, okay, we're going to get in a little closer here so we can see what I'm doing. At least at the moment, we're not going into detail, but we gotta. I put the exhaust on here temporarily. I think I'll take that back off because I was just trying to see how things fit. That's going to be a whole other video because this exhaust is in really rough shape and we need it to be in better shape. So, actually I can just take off that one pipe. And it should just, yeah, that's all I got to do. Get that out of the way. So we're going to be working in this area and in this area. And so this has all got to come off. And so to do that, I need a 10mm wrench. And then we'll take our little driver and pull all those off. So, we can get this loose. These particular wrenches, as you can see, I'm a snap-on fanatic, but these are Max, and they're 6-point swivel head. They don't make them anymore, boy, but they are the best wrenches. That's one of the reasons I don't buy Mac tools, is because let's just say I needed another piece out of a set or have to replace one, I can't get it. This lifetime warranty is null and void because I can't get one. Anyway. Okay, so we're going to take our Makita here with a number 3 bit on it, and we're just going to pop these guys off. Okay, all the way around, looking good. And come up, yeah, it's starting to come loose now. All right, so now we got this off, and we're going to take a look and see what we have in here. Hopefully things are what we need. Looks like there's, I can tighten it. That's a left-hand thread. Beware. Okay, now I need to find a puller for that. I should have one. This might be it. Yep. Okay. Always good to have the right puller. Okay. And away we go. Nothing to it. Well, it's got some weird spacer in there. we'll see how this goes. Of course, it's rusty, but that's all right. There's a big spacer in here. But we will see. Other than that, it's really clean. I've cleaned it up fairly well in there. So this is a bit rusty. We'll get it, but it'll be okay. Get this out of here. It's always good to have the right puller. This is just a screw. This just screws in and it pushes up against the crank, and it doesn't destroy anything in the process. And I've got a puller set which I bought a while back, which covers most of the stuff. Femza, Motoplat, a few of the others, and it does the Japanese bikes as well. It's great. Good to have the right tool. Okay, so I'm taking a Dremel here with a little wire wheel on it, and let's get this guy cleaned off so we can put in our starter. Get rid of any excess nastiness. Okay. Get around in here now, a little better. I already cleaned this up fairly well. That stud was in the way, but we're good. Now, take this, cleaned up this. Okay, and on top of that, I decided instead of using a wire wheel on this is to use the Rust-Oleum rust remover. It's a chemical stuff. This was a few minutes ago. This stuff is dynamite. It just really, really works well. So I'm going to go rinse this off and we'll see how it looks. So after a quick rinse, remember the rust, and it's gone. It's got some pitting in it, but that's fine. No big deal. This is gonna work perfect. So far, so good. Anyway, we'll see. So now what I have to do, now what has to be done is I've got to remove these bolts, and then I've got to put our one-way bearing in here. So I'm going to go get these bolts out, and we'll see what happens. So we're getting ready to put together our one-way clutch in this. The S model has this big heavy piece of whatever in there as a big spacer is really all it is, and it replaces the actual one-way clutch. So what I need to do is reassemble this one-way clutch and get it put back into here, and then what we can do is continue on by putting this all in. So the first things first is to just assemble this clutch, and it's got some springs and some cups, and you got these little pushers on it which push against these kind of bearings here, and it's at such an angle so that it goes into a bind. It goes into a bind when this moves the other direction. So you get all these cups in first. Well, you don't have to get them all in. Just get this and a bearing. That usually is enough right there. Let me get another cup and put it in there. Get that spring. And this guy. And where did the other cup go? And our bearing goes right in there. So this is what the assembly looks like all put together. There's a washer here that goes on, and what we're going to do is we are going to apply this guy in the right place, so that way I don't have to go moving things around too much. We'll turn it over, And I am going to go on ahead and use the bolts that came in it, but I think I'm just going to put a little red Loctite in there, just because. Oh, this is blue, wrong color. Red Loctite, and we'll put a little red Loctite on. And I like these guys. And you may be wondering why I'm not using original Loctite. Well, the reason is that I watch a channel called Torque Test Channel. Sometimes it's not applicable to what I'm doing, but I like watching it, and the guy's really good at what he does, and he does an honest test. I mean, he's not testing, he tests usefulness for some stuff, but a lot of the stuff is just, what's the maximum? But anyway, this guy tested Loctites, and this is the stuff he came up with, and it really is good stuff. So anyway, so now that we've got those guys, I think what I'll do here is tighten these down for one, and then we will continue our build. That's plenty close to these guys. Just in the steel here. Now, what we have to do here is, with that, you have to push in our spring, which is always fun when it's not in line. Now we'll get our bearing again. Get this in there. There we go. All right. So now, what we have here is this guy, and to put this in, all that you do is you turn it clockwise, push it in, turn it clockwise, and it spins beautiful. And then when you try to go the other direction, it just doesn't. So that's inserted. So what's going on here is the way this gets oiled, there's some grooves. There's a seal here, but it's wet inside that seal. And in these grooves, there is it allows oil to come on through. In the original one, it just had a spacer in there that didn't allow any oil to come through. So this thing oils that way. So no problem at all. So this is now ready to put back on the bike. Okay, so we need to get this guy lined up here, and I need to pull it loose because there's a thrust washer. It goes right here. If I can do this without hurting myself. And then we put this back and we turn it like that. There we go. We got our thrust washer in there. Check. But we go here, we push this on. I think we're on pretty good. You can see lay in it, which allows the chain to move around. Good. So there it is. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have to put the chain and the starter in here and see how that goes. Now we have a bolt. This is a left-handed thread bolt because this engine turns backwards. And so with it turning this way, if the bolt were to stay steady, turning it backwards would make it tighten up, which is great. So we're okay. Everything's nice there. Oh yeah, that took up yeah, we're in good shape. Okay, and here's our chain. We'll just lace this guy around here because what happens is it goes in here and the starter just pushes into this thing and we'll go from there. So let's go get the starter and get a couple bolts for it. Ouch. All right. So now we have our starter, okay, a couple bolts, and all that we have to do, we'll get the bolts out of the way, and we just take this guy, and he goes down in, hopefully without too much trouble. Oops, getting turned in the right direction here first. Okay, he goes in, and he sits to the back a little bit, and then you take it, and then you slide him in just like that. Okay, a couple bolts. Very nice. Okay, so the starter's in place. There's a couple things that we need to look at. I think there's a chain guide gizmo here that needs to go on. But other than that, it looks like we have got ourselves an electric starter motor. Oh, perfect. Look at that. Okay, and I'm going to tighten this guy down. That's about as good as it's going to get. Okay. Engine can turn, but when it goes this way, you see that the starter goes in the other direction. Perfect. Sheesh, that was simple. There's the old one that came out of there, and there's the oil that went inside. But it was sealed. No issues whatsoever. Yeah, no, that perfect. So we have our chain holder, our chain guide in here, and a little springy thing that pushes up against the starter motor, and this is ready to go back together. That's all tight. Our chain is in. We've got our thrust washer in. We've got everything done. So all that we need to do is put the gasket back on it, and away we go. And the gasket goes here. It's still a dry area in here. And you just take this guy, roll it to where it needs to be, and it's on. We now have an electric starter in place. So we'll bolt it all back up. Then we'll continue on this. We'll just get our wires in. Now we got to wire in some sort of solenoid, and I don't have that yet. I've got one. I just don't know if it's going to be okay. We'll get all that wired back in and get everything ready for the electric start. Remove this battery, put in the bigger battery. So we will continue on after this is all bolted together. And I almost forgot, we have to deal with our starter wire. It goes on underneath this cover along with the other wires. So I've got it kind of put in its correct position. And it gets a lock washer and a nut. No biggie, nothing special. And this will hook directly to a solenoid. When this hooks to the solenoid, then the solenoid hooks directly to the battery, and between the two of them, so when you hit the button, it turns on the solenoid, which gives you starter power. So we just take this, and we can move this right into position, and let's get all these wires in the little clip so that everybody's happy. And we'll take this, get it started, run it down, maybe. Okay, Wires are in position. Everything is out of the way. We'll get this tightened down now that it's in the proper position. And then the only thing that we need to do is you have to make sure that this is not touching anywhere, and it's not. But then we just, for the cap, we need to come up with 2 nice chrome bolts. So I'll have to come up with those. It goes on here like that. I'll find a couple nice chrome screws or bolts or something, and the starter is on. We'll get this guy back on. We got it. Now, find the right screws. And the screws are all about what looks the best, of course. And I don't like any of these, so I'm going to come up with some prettier screws here. I am. That's the right one there. Yeah, this one's not bad. All right, I'll just make sure everybody's tight. Very nice. Get this in the right position. Our previously heli-coiled shifter, I bent it into the right position. It was just bent out of shape like everything else on this motorcycle. But that's okay. Back to perfect again. Nice couple chrome bolts, and we'll be done. Looks great. So, starter's installed. Everything's ready to go. The only thing we need to do now is we'll figure out where the solenoid needs to go and move on from there. We're going to have to start working on the handlebar piece. So we'll get that going right away. So now that we've got our solenoid in place, our battery's been installed in its proper place, I've hooked the starter wire to the bottom side of the solenoid, and I got some gold-plated zinc, or yellow-plated zinc, and so we'll get that on there, and then I'm going to build a battery cable, a nice red one to go from here to here. It's pretty short, but we'll make it a little bit longer so it's a little more flexible. Well, I'm not sure if I have the footage here. It looks like the camera has been stopping recording. But anyway, I have built a nice big thick battery terminal here, and what I think I'm going to do is we'll hook up the negative here, but I think I need to make a thicker wire for the negative. It's just not big enough for the electric start. So I'm going to build another cable for the negative side, and that will help this thing immensely. So I'll be back. So just in case this thing didn't record me building the positive cable, we'll build the negative cable. So the first thing I did is I cut off a piece of very, very large cable, and then I've got some ends, nice big ends, copper, and I've stripped it back a little bit, put this on. So we're going to heat it up with the torch and just flow in some solder. And all I'm doing here is just clamping it in the vise to kind of absorb some of the heat. The cable is really, really hot at the moment, but that's good because that means that the cable got good and hot and the solder was able to flow, and I can see solder all the way around inside here. So this guy is really, really on there. So I'm going to cut the other one. We'll cut a little bit of insulation off with a knife. No biggie. Pull the insulation off. And we'll use another one of these guys. It's the same one. Yeah, it looks like the same one. This is like 6-gauge wire. This stuff is just huge. And we'll do the same thing. I've got a few strands sticking out there. I'm gonna well, it's not the best I can do. Okay, same drill. And we'll just flow solder down in there. I'm just heating up the copper end. I'm not heating up the wire directly. I'm going to let the heat flow into the wire. And we'll just let this stuff flow. It's really, really hot at the moment. Let that cool off. Make sure we're good and tight here. Oh yeah, well, we are soldered. Nice, 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 nice. Good. So we've got our negative cable all soldered up, and we can go put it on a motorcycle. You want to do that? Pick that one right off of there, didn't you? So now we have installed our electric starter inside. We've got it all wired in. We then wired onto a starter solenoid, which is this side. We got nice big giant sized battery wires, both negative and positive. So one side goes to the starter solenoid, the other side goes to the battery. We have the wire coming from our switch, which we got the harness wired in, and it goes on through, and then there's another wire which is a ground coming into this. So what we should be able to do, now that it's all hooked up, the battery is hooked up, everything is there, all the pieces are in, everything is plugged in the way it should be. We should be able to turn on the key, and when we turn on the key, we do get a light, but here's the test. When we push this button over here, does the starter come on? And here we go. Did we do everything correctly? Were we careful when we did it? Let's find out. And there it is. It just works perfect. So we now have an electric start motorcycle, and it is ready to go. I'll come back with a whiteboard and explain how the electric starter works through all the wiring, but we have an electric starter. So let's do a little bit of geek stuff here. What we're going to do is talk about how the electric starter works in a motorcycle, or in basically a car too. Does the same thing. So the first thing we want to do is we want to start with a battery. And we'll just draw, this is a battery, 12 volts. Yeah, right. Oh, that. 12-volt battery, okay? And we will go with the negative and the positive. Okay, so negative is going to go off to ground. Very simply, that's all that it does. Okay, the positive is going to go through our ignition switch and it goes on out to, this is switched 12 volts. Is that right? Switched 12 volts. Now, this guy goes up to our handlebar switch, which is the on, and then there's two stop positions here, which in turn goes through a button, which we will draw. We'll just do it this way. And another button here. And this will be our button. Okay, goes through here, through our button, and then it's going to go to our starter solenoid. And this has a little coil inside, which will go like this, and then that coil will go like this, and then the other side of the coil goes off to ground. And then inside here we have two terminals and when this coil goes off, these two will touch together, but that's all right. Now here we have the positive terminal going directly into the solenoid. And then the other side of the terminal goes, here's our starter motor. Starter. And the other side goes to ground. So this is the complete circuit that there is inside a starter. So let's explain what it does. 12-volt battery voltage. Okay, now what happens here is the ignition switch, when you turn on the ignition switch, you then supply 12-volt switch. This 12-volt switch goes off to the tail light, it goes off to the headlight, it goes off to everything inside your bike that gets turned on when it needs power. And it gets turned off this way. But it also goes into the handlebar switch. This is that handlebar switch on top with a little thing on it. You know, it switches back and forth, or it just has an on-off position. Anyway, so in the on position, we'll just get rid of you two guys. In the off position, even though it's switched, when that is off, the starter button has got nothing to turn on the starter solenoid. It's got 0. So when this is turned on, it then has something it can then turn on the starter solenoid with. And what happens when you push this button, you get, let's close this up so we can see, we get battery voltage going up through here, going up through our kill switch. Well, this is a kill. Our kill. And it goes through there. The starter button, then you can push it and you will supply current to our starter solenoid. When we get current in the starter solenoid, these two guys, this bar connects these two together, and we have battery voltage here, and it just turns on our starter motor. And that's really all that it is. It's a very, very simple circuit. There's not much to it. The kill switch and everything inside to get it to work. The solenoid is nothing more than a relay. Relays are designed to, you see relays all over the place, and if you don't know what they're for, basically they allow a way to turn on something, turn on like higher current type things. This starter, if we were to hook this line directly to this button, the wire would cook. The button would melt itself because there's way too much current for this guy to handle. So we have this solenoid here who can handle a ton of current, right, with these big terminals. And then the button here only turns on a little tiny relay, a little tiny coil inside, which the button can handle easily. So the button goes on, turns on this relay, which gets these two guys to connect, which turns on the starter motor. And that's really all that it is. And all that we've done, we put in a battery. We then hooked up one side with a big old honking wire. That was that big, there's a big red wire that goes straight to this guy. So that's where all that current goes. The rest of this stuff goes through the white wire and goes through, it actually goes through a fuse. We'll take this and then it goes up through a fuse, which is drawn like that. And then it goes to our ignition. So this is our 20 amp main fuse. So it goes through here, goes through the fuse, then it goes up to the ignition switch, which is turned on. The kill switch is turned on. The button turns on our starter solenoid, and then this guy put together and our starter motor works. And it did exactly that. We hooked it up and it works. And it's perfect. So that's how that works. And we'll just, we've got a starter in this thing. So that should do it for this video. We installed the starter. We got the starter motor in. We got the one-way bearing in. We've got the wiring all done. We went on ahead and wired in the switches and got a solenoid, put that in, and we plugged it all in, put in a new battery, and made some new battery cables. So we have some nice, big, juicy battery cables. Nobody can ever say we skimped on battery cables. And with those big battery cables in there, there's plenty of juice for the starter. Everything works perfectly in this thing. Turned on the key, hit the starter button, and the engine turned over. That is all that we needed to do. So we got it done. Let's and in the next video, we'll be working on probably getting the exhaust system at least tuned in a little bit and maybe start to get this thing to run. So we'll see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe. And again, thanks for watching.